Uh, this class is more of an introduction to the whole concept of architectural softwares. So I would really want to know the freshers we have around. If you're on 100 level or 200, you just put an emoji, a comment. If you're in 100 level or 200 level and you're in architecture and you're here, you just put a comment, right? I see praise. Where else? Okay, okay, okay. I know there are more people, right? But yeah, even if you're in 100 level, 200 or 300 level, right, and you're here, put a comment. We want to see, all right, 200. Okay, okay. Amazing, amazing. So yeah, when it comes to um architecture, right, one of the things that we learn, especially at the beginning of trying to study or studying architecture, is that we use a lot of software. We use a lot of software, and there's a reason to that. Uh, okay, okay, okay. Please, can you just confirm you can see my screen?
Yes, we can. Glory, we can see your screen.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, okay. So yes, as I was saying, that one of the things we know is we use software a lot, right? And me remembering back into my 100 level, so I had the privilege of meeting someone who was already studying architecture. I think by that time he was in his 400 level, his penultimate year before graduation. And when I told him that I'm actually doing this your course, bro said, "Oh, that's nice. That's nice." Uh, and the first thing he told me was I should get a laptop. So he told my dad got me a laptop. Those plastic HPs, right? I don't know how many of us actually use those plastic HPs, but yeah, yeah, those plastic HPs. So he then installed my first ever software, which was SketchUp. So he started using it in front of me, and I was like, man, this thing is so cool. Like it's so cool. And that was really when many things just start sparking up, right? And although I did not have uh understanding of what I was doing, I was sure doing something, right? I was sure doing something. Okay. So now there is really this uh I won't say it's an argument, especially here in Nigerian university. It's not an argument, don't let us find an argument. But how many of us believe that we should stop using manual drafting to learn architecture? How many of us? Okay. So yeah, um, I won't say it's an argument, but it's something that has been on the run, and uh, I would just express my honest take to it, right? Or let me say what I believe is the truth. Software, manual drafting, two of them are tools. Two of them are tools, right? And tools are the means to an end. The end is a design. The means to the end are the tools. where the design comes from is your brain. So if you are trying to learn software and you don't have the basic understanding of design, you would find that you would just doing things that you just see, right? Which is not bad, but is not the best. The reason why manual drafting is not it cannot be overused is because it is the fastest way for you to bring out an idea from your brain to something that is not your brain. Because you can't see your brain, but you can see something that is physical, right? So you treat manual drafting and uses of software for architecture as hand in hand, right? They always work hand in hand. They always work hand in hand, right? And one thing that uh, I've been able to see, and when I spoke to someone who is very profound in the AC industry, Mr. Kenny, who programs architectural plugins for Revit, right, and other things. So he was able to express the fact that we are we are like 10 times behind when it comes to the usage of software, right? And many of the causes to this is that many of us have really not learned manual drafting, right? Actually putting your ideas. And one thing you will notice is that most times the tools will determine your result. The tools will determine the result. Now, if you notice that when you want to start a design and the first thing you go is into the software, right? You would most likely be designing from your head, definitely, right? But because it's not as flexible as is meant to be, you'll be drawing lines of straight walls, of uh, just flat walls and everything. And now you will see that that same thing is being reflecting in the designs we bring out, right? But what am I trying to say is better and better that we master manual drafting before to understand software. Now, why do we need software? It's a very good question to ask, right? If you don't know what you're doing something and you doing it um, without really understanding, right? One of the main reasons why software for architecture is something that came out, right, from the earliest of the AutoCAD 2000s, around 1999, when some of us are in the world. So one of the reasons why was that they needed something that was more efficient. Let's call it an extra superpower, right? And right, something that was going to enhance what you already knew. And mind you, these people were very profound and proficient in the of mound drafting, right? And they really needed something that was more accurate, something that would serve like an extra superpower. Another is to communicate their designs well. Now, uh, you know when you draw on your papers, right? And um, you are trying to explain that, oh, this is how big this would be on this, right? Now, if you want to now have one thing on two different skills, one design on two different skills, you would have to design on one, like you have to draft on one skill first, then another skill, Now, to communicate your design well, right? Sometimes you would want to give your people looking at that design a very real life experience, right, of that your design. So that was one of the things that architectural software help you with, right? So yeah, another reason why we need it is for us to be able to design with other people, collaboration. And collaboration has always been there even before the software. Most of the manual drafting, sorry, okay. So as I was saying, that collaboration has always been there ever since manual drafting. When someone wants to, when a particular firm in those days want to draft something, they break the designs into different parts. Okay, you will draft this part. Now I will draft this part. Do you understand? So it has always been a thing because design is most of design is really not an individual job, right? Another thing is to be able to analyze design parameters. Now, design parameters, what I mean are things like your use of space, the space area, um, your window to wall ratio, and those other parameters that we usually use in designing a building to be efficient. Another is it gives us more details, like more accurate details, because pen and paper can't be 100% accurate. But I can tell you that when you draft on a software, you are more accurate, right? You are actually more accurate because there is information for every single line and every single distance between each line and each line, right? The next one is parametric design. And parametric design, I will explain later. But let's look at parametric design as um, using computer or using computer programs, right, to be able to uh, have some particular formulas that a design will follow. I'll explain better as you move on, right? So let's now answer the question that what do we use them for? So here we'll be looking at a different aspect that we most architects use architectural softwares. Now this is very important for you to know where you would want to specify in or where you believe that you need um, more strength in. Number one is what we usually do, computational design and idea development. Now we know that when we start any design, we start with a brief, and from the brief we start imagining how things we do, how the floor plan is going to look like, probably from how um, the clients want the flow to be. So things like this, things like that, things like that, things like that. So even to the mass, right? For you to be able to know, okay, this particular mass, would it allow for ventilation? Okay, if it does not allow for ventilation, let's cut out a space which will help to open it, probably a courtyard or else any type of cutout that can open other spaces, right? So those idea developments and iterations are things that you can do more effectively when you have softwares. Now, example of this software are Rhino, SketchUp, Revit to a large extent, and Grasshopper. Now, as I'm explaining this, I'll try to tell you what each of these softwares can do and what you would actually need them for, right? So for idea development, what Rhino helps you is that it's able to generate or you are able to model the idea you have to see how it looks in a 3D space. So the main idea is that you're moving from you being able to sketch those things on a 2D canvas or paper, right? And you're moving to be able to model it and look at it in 3D space. Now, why 3D space? Because your buildings will definitely be in 3D space, right? So yeah, one thing that Rhino does well is the fact that it's able to handle very, very complex stuff, very, very complex stuff. And that doesn't mean it cannot handle the simpler ones, but yeah, it's able to handle more complex modeling. Now, the next guy is SketchUp. SketchUp is one of the most beginner-friendly applications in architectural softwares because it just uses basic principles of modeling. Okay, I draw a square, I drag it up, it becomes a cube, and those things, right? So one of the good things about SketchUp is that it is both efficient and simple to use. The next guy is Revit. Now, Revit has something called massing, which allows you to be able to make design iterations just like SketchUp and Rhino, right? But one good thing about Revit is that you can just start your design up from the mass or the mass development or the idea you have already, right? So that's one of the good things about Revit. The next thing is Grasshopper. Now, Grasshopper is a plugin inside Rhino. So Grasshopper is not a standalone software; it's inside Rhino. Now, the reason why I added Grasshopper to this idea development because Grasshopper uses um, parameters. It treats your design like you're coding something. You're taking something through a process, right? So with Grasshopper, you can do way more complex things. You can do way more um, procedural. Let me put it like that. Things that follow a particular process, right? You can be able to do that with Grasshopper. Now, Grasshopper is not um, um, a direct modeling plugin, but it deals with things called nodes, right? They're able to plug to each other. The next thing that we know that most of us know is construction drawing and management. And this is very important because we need to communicate our ideas to the other allied professionals so that they can be able to help us and achieve the goal that of constructing that building that we have designed already, right? So one of the softwares that I usually use for this is the one called AutoCAD, right? Yeah, people believe that AutoCAD is going on extinct, but I can tell you that it is really not, right? Or it's actually in the process. It's actually in the process, truthfully. But that is really majorly for the architectural side of things, right? Majorly for architectural side of things. Other allied professionals, especially in Nigeria, they will give you DWG, they will give you AutoCAD file, right? Although things are developing, at least firms are beginning to make standards that okay, we don't want anything that is not in 3D or that is really not BIM, right? From just manual like or just line drafting that AutoCAD is really good at. So now the other thing is ArchiCAD. ArchiCAD is very interesting software, and when it comes to construction drawings, the two main popular ones are ArchiCAD and Revit, right? So ArchiCAD is also a BIM software. Now, what do we mean by BIM software? BIM is the short form for Building Information Modeling. Now, the easiest way to understand BIM is that every element you are modeling has an information to it. Every element in that building that you're modeling has an information to it. Your wall has an information. The information that can be in your wall is the height of the wall, the volume of the wall, the thermal conductivity of the wall, um, specifications for that wall, the assembly of that wall, different information that is embedded into those particular elements. Now the next one is Bluebeam. Bluebeam, Bluebeam look is very similar to AutoCAD, right? But it's usually used to edit, mostly to edit um AutoCAD files because it's very much lightweight, right? So the next thing is a very popular software, which is Revit. Revit, almost everybody uses Revit, right? Now, the reason why I would say almost everybody uses Revit because Revit has been able to centralize everything the architect needs. That's the strong point of using Revit, right? And because of the company that makes it, which is Autodesk, they have been able to um, bring different ideas into that one software that allows us to do different things as architects. Now, the next thing is parametric and algorithmic design. Now, I'll try to explain it as I started when I was explaining Grasshopper. Now, the use of parametric or algorithms to design is something that is being used now. Now, why would you want something to be parametric or algorithmic? Now, when you look at the word parametric, it means that it is following some particular rules that guide the design, right? Now, a very basic explanation of what of how something parametric can be implemented is that um, I have I'm working with volume of the building. So like I'm designing based on already giving volume for that building. We're like, okay, this building must not exceed this volume, right? Now, what if I now have a very complex shape, but I still need it to attain that particular volume? How do I control parametric? Parametric. So you can say, okay, as the breadth is increasing, right? uh the height will be increasing or the height will be reducing, right? Just for me to attain that particular volume. So that is very has a very basic understanding of what parametric design is. Part of the leading softwares, right, which are now plugins are Grasshopper and Dynamo. Dynamo is plugging into Revit. Grasshopper is plugging into Rhino. Now, although now you can have the ability to link Grasshopper into Revit because Grasshopper is actually stronger and you can do more complex things, right? The example I even gave here was that let's say a stadium design and requires a particular roof structure. Now, this particular roof structure is meant to respond to wind loads. So, everyone understands that okay, as wind they blow on top this roof gets, it has to be able to either resist it or it has to be able the shape should be able to be in the way that okay, it can be able to direct that wind somewhere else. That's where parametric design and algorithmic design, right? So you are taking the wind load or the wind pattern, right, as one of the parameters that will determine the shape of that roof. That's a very good explanation of that. If you are understanding what I'm saying to here, please just put something on the chat box so that we know we are following. Just an emoji, thumbs up. Okay. Praise also. Anyone else so I can continue? Okay. All right. So I'll just continue with that. So the next thing is what most of us are able to do on one of the popular things about architectural software is 3D modeling and visualization. Now, It's very easy to know why visualization is one of the important things in architecture. Now, I have a design in my head. The nearest place or the easiest way I can express that design is into paper and pen, paper and pen, right? But for me to be able to, for the person that I want to explain to be able to see it on a different dimension, which is the third dimension, right? So it has the height, breadth, and width. You get. For the person to be able to see it in a different dimension, you have to use 3D modeling, right? Now, the visualization now comes in handy because when we are designing buildings, we're not only designing with lines and shapes, we also design with texture, colors, patterns, um, how the light is influences the design. That's actually what bets all these visualization softwares, right? Now you can look at them in two ways, right? There are many 3D modeling software that offers visualization on its own, right? Example is Blender actually, although you can render um the rendering engine is actually a plugin, but it's together with Blender. Another is Revit. At least Revit in-house rendering, right? Another is Rhino. I think Rhino has a very not too bad, right? Uh, but when it now comes to attaching um, textures, giving light, having an environment that kind of simulates the real environment, that's where these other softwares now go to. Now I'll skip this one because um, I would expand on it later. Now the next thing is beam and collaboration. Now, as I explained before, in the sense that we now that we are trying to design more energy efficient, climate responsive buildings, we need to have all the information about all the elements on that building. That's why beam is beam, right? As I said before, it is um, looking at every information that is embedded in every element in that your building that is being modeled, right? So one of the um, leading softwares in BIM and collaboration is the Autodesk Suite. Now there was something called BIM 360 before, but now they changed it to BIM Collaborate. Right? They changed it to BIM Collaborate. So I don't know if you can still see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, you can still see my screen, right?
It has stopped sharing now, though.
Okay, let me adjust that first. Okay, what about now? Okay, what about now? What about now?
Okay. Yes, it's back. It's back on.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, as I was saying, one of these softwares is Beam Collaborate, which actually brings different solutions in one, right? How it actually works is that you are able to sync your Revit model to a cloud, to a cloud storage, which you are able to either visualize or manage without being on your Revit model, right? So your engineer can see your design while trying to tweak his own. Do you get? So that's where BIM and collaboration really does a lot, right? So with BIM collaborator, you're able to calculate how many concrete you will need from both the architectural and the structural engineer, right? So all those things are very very useful in our days. Yeah. So next thing is sustainability and environmental analysis. So this one is one of I believe that we should really put our hands on. There are some very basic ones that we could implement. Now, let me try to paint a very quick scenario apart from this, the one on the slide. Let's say, for example, you are designing a building, right? And you want to zone your space based on how it responds to heat, based on how your design responds to heat. How you'll be able to do that is to be to bring the weather data or the sun path of that location into your the 3D model and in a way have a map, right, that would show, okay, based on everything I have around this building, right, where will be the hottest part, where will be the coolest part. So in the hottest part, we'll prioritize heating, sorry, cooling, right? I'll prioritize cooling than just putting ACs everywhere, right? So now that gives you the advantage of uh being able to have good um energy efficiency, right? So this is where sustainability and your design just comes in handy, right? And these softwares really do a great job. Now, the first group of software you see there is Ladybug and forgotten the other name. So two of them are one of the most used plugins for Rhino Studio, right? So one of the used plugins for Rhino, and they help. Right. Without the Fire, right, which is also a very good one, especially when you are just starting. So one of the questions that many of us have, right, is what should I start with? Now, this is really targeted to those that are just starting architecture, just starting to learn these softwares, and I'll bet it's very helpful, right? I'll try to share my journey first. When I started using SketchUp, with time, SketchUp just got boring because there's just a level of things you could do, and based on the way I usually learn things, I don't know, I at that time I found it hard to just stick on one thing. So from SketchUp, I went to ArchiCAD and I said no to ArchiCAD. Then that's when I started using Revit. Now all these tests and runs was actually my 100 level, right? Although I did not understand a lot, especially based on what I was modeling, I was just following tutorials, which was not bad, right? And it helped me a great game, right? But it's like better if I understood what I was doing, right? But from there, I now started dipping my hands into different modeling softwares. And the first one that um I tried to get used to was Revit, right? I could remember that we used to I used to model light bulb, right, inside like the light bulb of the room until I knew that, oh, you could actually have a light feature that can be illuminated in that your room, right? So that's just one of those things I was just learning. From there I went to Blender, right, which was a very good learning experience. But one thing that I would just say, just start with something. Although there is actually a very good path pathway to follow, right, which is more efficient, but just start with something. Now, before you start, I will try to address some particular questions that I believe that you should actually address or ask yourself, right, before you start. One of it is, what are your priorities now, especially if you're a student. What are your priorities now? If you're in 100 level and you have not started using these softwares, right, and it is not a necessity, right? It's not a necessity based on your own personal goals or to learn some particular softwares. Just stick with the basics, right? Just stick with the basics. It will help you a lot. Now, the next is what are the industry standards? Now, the easiest thing to know what the industry standards or something is just look at job applications. Okay, just ask the question, what are the particular softwares that are needed to be able to for me to be able to enter this particular firm, right? So just look at least the most proficient firms, right? You look at, okay, what they actually use, and that will actually give you a very good direction in which exact softwares you should learn. Now, the next thing is the level of proficiency that you need to attain. Now, some people might want to go straight into landscape architecture. There are some things that you would definitely not need. Probably um, some complex modeling, you won't need that. What you will need will most probably be the simple modeling, visualization, and analysis of weather data, climate data, and all those things. At least as a landscape architect, right? Um, just based on your goal, it's your career goal, right? You would actually need to prioritize which softwares you would want to you would need, right? Which software you would need to know, right? And need to learn, right? So the next thing I'll talk about is your computer strength, right? As I said, is a tool. Is a tool. If your pencil is not sharpened, you can't draw on your paper, right? If your computer is not strong, there are some particular softwares you might not be able to learn, right? And most of the softwares that we use are very um, power intensive, right? So the next thing you would need to know is how available are learning resources for that software. And that's one of the things that was a challenge for me when I wanted to start learning Rhino. Uh, there was really no um, path, right? Or there was really no um, there was no wide range of courses or learning videos even from YouTube that I could learn from, right? Most of them don't address the basics until some YouTubers saw the need and they said actually doing this thing. So yeah, it's one of the things you would actually want to uh, consider whenever you're choosing the software you're going to learn. The next one is, how much is it to purchase the software? Um, Now, although I would say I'm an advocate for cracking softwares, right? Which is what most of us do, but you can't be cracking all your life, right? So it's best that you actually learn the softwares that you know that at least when at least at the point you are, you can either be able to purchase, and if you're unable to purchase it, just gladly and humbly just go and use the cracked version, right? The next thing is what a path that I would suggest for architecture students. Um, this is not a a a one size fits all um trajectory that you can take into learning this software, but it's something that you can actually um go through, and I can promise that you would actually achieve um what you want to achieve, especially based on your learning curve. Now, what our advice is not very common, but our advice to start with modeling tools. Actually, start with modeling tools. Now, why are you starting with modeling tools? Now, most of the BIM or CAD softwares, such as Revit, AutoCAD, are very rigid, right? And one thing I would advise is that, especially when you're just trying to learn these things, try to look for the ones that are very flexible. Why is that? You'll be able to learn some particular things that will be useful on the more rigid one. And I'm actually speaking based on experience. Now, if you learn SketchUp first before learning Revit, you are going to understand the basic modeling of Revit better than someone that is just starting 3D modeling and just entering into Revit straight. Person can be confused, right? So I would actually advise, right, that you actually put your hands on this modeling software. You really don't need to use or model the most complex things, just simple stuff, right? One room, a very simple house, just things, right? And those are some things that you can easily find online, right? Especially how to model this particular bedroom in Revit, how to do this in SketchUp, how to do this in Blender, right? And the softwares that I actually recommend for that is SketchUp, Blender, 3ds Max, and Rhino, right? I would actually advise you start with either SketchUp or Rhino, right? Because they will give you a very good glimpse of how 3D modeling actually is, right? So the next thing that you should actually go into is the technical drawing and modeling. Now, this is where you now start looking at being more precise in what you're modeling, right? Okay, I want this building to be like this from 3 meters to this meters. The ceiling will be this thick. That's where you now start learning things like Revit, ArchiCAD, or AutoCAD, right? Some people start with AutoCAD, but I can tell you that you can just drive straight to Revit, right? It helps. It helps a lot, right? Because most of the things that are going to learn in AutoCAD, you can just learn them straight from Revit. So the next is now advanced beam modeling, right? So that's where you actually now start looking at how you can create things like your schedule of windows, using the information of all the windows that you have in your building, right? So those that's just an example of when you would need this, right? So apart from the basic modeling of your construction details or other things, right? You really need at least good knowledge of advanced BIM modeling. Now, the next is 3D visualizations and presentation, which is very important if you want to be an architectural student, because what we usually do most of the time is um, persuading people that, okay, I can design this thing, right? I can tell you for a very big fact, the way you present your work um, determines how they perceive how your work is. Some people, some people's design might not be that good based on spatial analysis or like, okay, this space should be around this space. But the way it looks from render, it just blows people's minds. Do you get? So like that's actually one of the major things. Right. So what our advice is to first start with the ones that are really tied to architectural softwares. Um, Software such as Lumion, Twinmotion, D5 Render, V-Ray, and Corona, right? V-Ray and Corona. So like those softwares would actually need um a different PUD software to be able to function, right? But learning this one first because we are really not focusing, especially when you're not focusing so much on architectural visualization, right? These particular softwares with time, right, are now becoming very efficient. Are now becoming very efficient. Okay, so let me go back to my slide. Okay, okay, okay. So now, the next that I think that we can actually double on is computational design, which I spoke about before, where we start looking at parametric design or algorithmic designs, right? So major sources are Rhino, Grasshopper, Rhino with Grasshopper, and Revit with Dynamo. They are very strong, and I can tell you for a big fact, the reason it's very rare to see people that use or architectural firms that use this, but when you see, right, I can tell you that their workflows are better. For you, okay, when we met, when I mean we in Covenant University, we had the visit to ACCL, which is in Victoria Land in Lagos, and we were able to see that if you can't use most of these softwares, there are some work that they can't just give you, right? They use Dynamo for their sheets. They use Dynamo for because they work majorly with Revit, right? They use Dynamo for almost everything, right? Even to automatic dimensioning, I don't need to start picking okay this from this from this from this. It's like having a particular process that would automatically dimension your particular drawings. All those things are things that computational design would be able to help so much, right? And now there are more courses, there are more videos on YouTube that you can really learn these things, right? Now, the last or the second to the last thing I want to speak about is advanced beam and construction, right? This is actually very important because now in the age we are entering into, there are some firms that won't work with you except you send them a beam model, not a card model, right? So if you're sending, even down to ACCO, they realize that if you are a contractor and you're asking for AutoCAD file, they won't work with you. They will not work with you because they have paid for um, these softwares for them to be able to use it efficiently for the particular design they're trying to do. So you must be in line with what they're doing for you to be able to work with them, right? So I really advise that you actually try to learn this thing, right? For being itself, there are really not so much videos you can see, but there are some basic things that you can start with. Basic things you can start with. Now you can also from there you can also start going to specializations, where you can also start looking at geographic data, um, thermal analysis, environmental analysis, just all those things. So that really based on your specialization. If you want to, right? If you're an architect but working as an urban planner, there's no how you know use softwares like QGIS and ArcGIS because they are very important for what you want to do. So driving to the next thing, so we don't waste time, is tips for your learning journey. And I would really want you to learn your ears if you have not actually picked anything from what I've been saying. I really want you to learn your ears onto this one. Now, the number one thing I would advise is that try to understand how you, as a person, uniquely learn things, right? Because one thing many of us fail to understand is that we learn things in different ways. Why? Because we have different experiences of learning, right? Now, your ability to um, identify how you learn, right? Looking at how you learn other things will be very instrumental to you learning software. You can start by learning on the job. Okay, I've not used this software at all before, right? But I will start using the software because I have a particular um, design to visualize, right? You will now go to internet, okay, how to do this with this type of software, how to do this, how to do this, how to do this, right? Because it will help you better, right, as you are trying to learn. The other thing is try to embrace mentorship and tutorship, right? And I believe is one of the most important things is that it 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 takes more time when you're learning this thing on your own, especially when you're learning with things like YouTube, right? It takes way more time because they don't know how you are going to learn. They are not holding your hands. Those people that are teaching you have they already know it and they might not have encountered the problem that you are going to face as you are doing your own. So actually looking for people that already know this thing to hold your hand as you are learning these things is gold. Is very big gold. And I mean it's gold. It's very big gold, right? The next thing is for you to be able to learn as you're working on practical projects, right? Everything you're learning, every tool you're trying to understand, make sure that you are very practical about it, right? Let's make sure you are very practical about it. Okay, if I'm modeling a wall, right, on a normal wall that I'm seeing, right, what does this my wall have, right, that this other wall does not have, or what does this physical world I can see have that mine doesn't have, right? So that's where you start looking at okay, mine has a Santos block and it has rendering with like screening, sorry, with paint or screening with some other things, probably an insulation board or something. So you actually having practical projects or being very practical as you're learning will help you a lot. The other thing is that start learning shortcuts from the start, right? And for some people, they might think that you is like contradicting to actually learn shortcut without knowing what that shortcut, where the particular tool for that shortcut is. But I can tell you for a big fact, if you actually understand, at least as you are learning that tool, right, you learn the shortcuts. Is one of the best things. Now, why are shortcuts easy? You don't need to think twice. Where is this thing? Because your brain is programmed to, okay, if I need a wall, I'll just press WA, right? If I need to trim part, I'll just press TR. All those things. Because it will just help you to design these things faster. And these things take time. You won't lie, right? Designing on software takes time. So you really want to cut down the time that you use to design these things, right? And trying to spend at least ample time on the design itself and not the representation. Now, the next thing is that the little you know, if you just learn a particular tool, right? This is a very big secret. If you learn this particular tool, look for someone that doesn't know it, teach the person. You will know it more. And like it's the reason why for software it works better because there are different ways of doing one particular thing. But if you're able to teach your way, you can be able to see how what's it called? How other people are even able to use that particular framework or that particular way of you achieving that one thing or that using that tool, right? So it doesn't matter if you are just starting, right? If you just learn some look for someone that doesn't know it, try to explain to the person. It will help you a lot. So the next thing is always ask for reviews. Always ask for reviews. When it still boils down to the mentorship and tutorship, right? When you do one thing, or you let's say you complete a very small project, meet somebody that already does this thing better than you. How can I make this better? And that's how you grow. It's very easy to grow faster because you need to learn many softwares. I can promise you, right? It's based on your priorities. But one of the easiest ways is actually to learn and ask for reviews. That way you actually get better. You actually get better. The next thing is actually to focus on particular set of softwares that work for you or the ones that you have picked the industry standard and actually still be flexible to know how other softwares work. So if there are two softwares for me to pick, V-Ray and Corona, right, for visualization, and I choose Corona, at least it would be good if I have knowledge of V-Ray because you might not know the company that you're entering that would say we are not using Corona, oh, it's V-Ray that we're using, right? So those are one of the most important things, especially um, when you're trying to learn a lot of softwares. Have those ones be focused. Have those ones that you know how they work, right? Now the next thing is that never feel that you know everything or you what or the method of you doing this is actually the best. Look for better ways to solve one problem. Look for better ways to create a wall. Look for the other ways that people are able to do one or two things. I can tell you for the fact that if I can even think, there are about 7 different ways of 5 to 7 different ways of creating a wall in Revit, right? But most of us kind of know two, yeah, or know three, right? But like you just need to ask questions and actually Google, right? Use YouTube to learn more. So so one of the final things I'll be talking about is where do you actually learn these things? The number one place I would advise is please just go to YouTube first. Now, what you should do is when you go to YouTube, try to understand what that software is used for and how it actually works, right? So it is kind of you are trying to test the grounds, but not by being practical or not doing it yourself. Looking at how other people do it, right? And looking at how can I even learn this type of thing now? This one is looking more complex. Okay, probably I should just take it small by small, right? So it really gives you a very good idea of what to learn. Now, another way you can look at YouTube is that there are people that have full courses, full videos on how to do this and this, and there are a lot. There are a lot now because it is more like an underserved niche where we know that we need it, right? We know we need it. So that's where the need now comes in, right? And I can promise you that you see different tutorials for different particular software. You just need to check on YouTube. Now the next one is online courses with certifications. Now the reason why this is good, especially when you're trying to validate the fact that you can use this software, right? So for some people, it's not as important, but to an extent, right, it is actually important. Honestly, it's very important, right? So what I would just say is that as you are learning from YouTube, try to at least when you get little money, right, from even from other places or even the one you already learned, right? Try to invest in online courses that have certifications, right? They help a lot. Now, the next is actually looking for people that will hold you by the hand, where you can ask questions and they can solve your problems one on one, right? I believe that this is actually the fastest and one of the best way to actually achieve things like to achieve good quality. Now, the last and one of the most efficient ones I can promise you is AI chatbots. ChatGPT, DeepSeek, all those ones that are already coming out, that they are fighting each other. Many of them can be your own tutor, right? So treat those AI chatbots as your tutors, right? Your tutors that you that always have your time. Your tutors that you ask them any question and they know it, right? So treat these AI chatbots as as um treat them as your tutors. Now the one to in conclusion, right? Um, I was able to do something some years back when I noticed that many of my mates at that point, that was probably 300 level, needed to start learning these softwares, right? And I knew where they were. Most of them were in Telegram, right? And they were very useful, right? So there are courses that people pay for, but on some Telegram group chats, you will find it for free. So what I did was just collect everything and bring them to one place where you can just search for it, right? The, the latest Linux software that is cracked, or you can choose not to crack it if you actually have the license, right? You will find it there. It's just to download and they are using, right? And I believe that is something that is very useful to every one of us. So on Telegram, you can just search for Architect Archive, where you see the public channel, and you can be able to um, look for these courses, right? And I also post YouTubers and books for architecture students so they can learn some particular things better, right? So yeah, this just comes to the end of um my of the lecture, right? I would really want to know in the chat box, in the chat, what you learned, right? I really want to know what's like some particular things that you learned. So yeah, if there are some particular things that you learned that you believe that you would want to that you want to show for others to see, so please just put that on the chat box on the chat. And please thank you guys for listening to um this lecture. And I really appreciate your time and effort.